death for the recording. There we go. Now it's recording. All right, guys. So our warm-up is completing the teacher survey in the announcements. Hopefully you guys have taken care of that. If you have not, could you please get it done today? I appreciate it. All right, so we are finishing up Module 9, Lesson 4. We're going to do questions 8 through 14 today. So hopefully you guys have your course arc open and your notebook open. As a reminder, as you guys are opening these up, I reopened up all of the Module 9 assignments. So 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 are all open. That means course arcs, notebooks, and quizzes for the ones that we had. So like 9.1 quiz, 9.3 quiz, if you didn't do your 3, you didn't get your 3 attempts, and you want to, you have some open and you want to bring up the grade, it's a good time to do it. You can go back and look at our videos in the live sessions where both the review sheets are and when I'm going over the information. Maybe you didn't get 100% on the course arc because you missed one of the days when we went through it. This is your chance to go back and redo it, because remember, you can do those unlimited number of times. Maybe you didn't complete the notebook or you didn't get a good enough grade on there. You can go back and fix that and resubmit it. That also means the Zombie Apocalypse project is open until Monday as well. Remember, March 6th is the last day for work to go into quarter 3. So that's all of 9.1, 2, 3, and then today 9.4. You have until Monday the 6th at 11:59 to get those in. We'll work 9.5 on Wednesday and Thursday, but that work is going to go in quarter 4, okay, after spring break. All right, so hopefully I've stalled enough that you guys have your course arc and your notebook open. So the first part of this, we're talking about elastic and inelastic demand. We know government tax policies have impact on both individuals and businesses. Where does that burden fall? Who is impacted the most? Is it the person who sends the money to pay the tax bill? Or is it like the consumer that has that? So in order to figure out where it falls, we look at supply and demand analysis, what we did in point 3, right? So in this one, we're going to look at this example. Suppose the government imposes a gasoline tax of 50 cents per gallon and collects the tax from service stations. You may think the burden of the tax falls only on the service stations because they send the tax money to the government, but not always, right? So we're looking at figure 2. And inelastic demand, meaning consumers do not, like, we can't get less of something, okay? We know it takes so many gallons to fill the tanks of our cars. We know whatever we do throughout the week, we spend or use so many tanks of gas. We can't just go, well, I'm not going to buy as much gas, okay? So in this case, when they went from $1 to $1.40, so, 4/5 of that tax went to the consumers, right? Because we went from paying $1 to paying $1.40. Like when we're talking about the quantity and how much we have, this is called inelastic demand. We don't have a choice. We have to spend the money. And because they know that, they pass more of the tax burden on to us, the consumers, okay? In figure 3, when we're talking about elastic demand, the same 50 cents tax burden, but in this case, we can choose to have less of that item. In that case, the owners of this place would be like, we can't charge them all of the tax. We can't push that burden on them because they're just going to demand less. They're going to buy less. So when it comes to elastic items, you can see out of $1 to, it only went up 10 cents. So only 1/5 of demand went on to the burden went to the consumers. The other 4/5 went to the business owner. So what I have is like, we know him and this time he's doing AC/DC of elastic and inelastic demand. We're going to watch that. I'm going to mute myself really quickly, and then we'll come back because this particular page is not in our notebook, and then we'll move on to the next. Okay.
Hey, how you doing? This is Mr. Clifford with ACDC Econ, Key Economic Concepts in 60 Seconds. Could you just ask, your teacher just asked you about the elastic and inelastic range of a demand curve. And we're talking about imperfect competition and how the demand is downward sloping, the marginal revenue goes down faster, and it looks like this. The marginal revenue is less than demand. Could the teacher ask you, okay, what part of that demand curve is elastic, which one's inelastic, and how can you tell? Well, the concept I'm going to explain to you in 60 seconds. The first concept you have to remember is the idea of the total revenue test. We did another video on that one. For elastic demand, we said if the price was here and the price goes down, right? The price goes down, a whole lot more people buy, and we said total revenue increases. When price goes up, total revenue decreases. That's the concept for elastic demand. Over here, when the price goes down for inelastic, well, not that many more people start buying. Price goes down, total revenue goes down. Price goes up, total revenue goes up for inelastic. Take that concept, whoop, transfer it straight over here. Good. When marginal revenue is positive, total revenue is going to be going up. But since its marginal revenue is falling, total revenue increases at a decreasing rate. And then it hits a peak right here. And then when the marginal revenue is negative, total revenue starts to fall. That's what the total revenue looks like for Monopoly. So if I draw in a vertical straight line, it just shows me the concept. Look right here. For these units produced, from that unit to that unit, the price is going down. If the price is going down, at the same time total revenue is going up. This is the elastic range of the demand curve. Over here, price is falling from here to here, total revenue is falling. Price is going down, total revenue is going down. Where's that? Where's that? Price going down, total revenue going down. Boom, right there. That is the inelastic range of the demand curve. Elastic range, inelastic range, done. Until next time.
So do you understand what he was saying? With elastic, if the price goes up, the demand for it goes down. If the price goes down, the demand for it goes up, right? Things that we can make those choices on. Inelastic is whether the price, if the price goes up or the price goes down, it's not like we can have less gas. Thank you, Genesis. Or, less electricity, for instance. Nor do we, if the price goes down, do we go, hey, give me a little bit more power or give me a little bit more electricity or whatever. Okay. That's kind of the generalization of what they were talking about. Okay. All right. So characteristics of a tax. This is where we go into question 8 in our notebook. So there's 4 things a tax has to have. It needs to be simple enough that both taxpayers and businesses can understand and follow through with it. I think we're kind of failing on that one here. Efficiency. It should be where nobody is spending too much time either, assessing and collecting taxes on the government side or, having to give up too much time or paying too much taxes on the taxpayer side. Certainty. Certainty is a characteristic of a good tax. It should be clear to the taxpayer when taxes are due and how much money is due and how the tax should be paid, which they're pretty decent on that one. And then equity. The tax system should be fair so that no one bears too much or too little of the tax burden. Okay, equity is a hard thing. There are 2 ideas on how to measure the fairness of a tax, right? The first idea is called benefits received principle. According to this principle, a person should pay taxes based on the level of benefits he or she expects to receive from the government. For instance, people who drive, for example, pay gasoline taxes that are then used to build and maintain highways. In this way, the people who receive the most benefit from the roads contribute the most to their upkeep. The second idea is about fairness is called the ability to pay principle. According to this principle, people should pay taxes according to their ability to pay. This is the principle behind the progressive income tax. People who earn more income should pay more taxes. You have to understand, trying to achieve equity in a tax system as large as the United States is a huge challenge. Many complain about the number and complexity of taxes we are subject to. But some of this complexity is a result of the efforts to achieve equity. We're walking a tightrope, right? So balancing revenues and tax rates. So how much revenue does a good tax generate? The answer is enough, but not too much. Yeah, that's clear as mud, right? That is enough so that citizens' needs are met, but not so much that the tax discourages production. So for instance, if a company has to pay 100,000 in taxes, it would not be able to use that 100,000 to expand production. If tax rates are lower, then the company could use that money to stimulate production rather than pay taxes. So ultimately, many people argue the economy benefits from lower taxes. So this graph right here goes with our question. So we're looking at tax rates in countries from Mexico to Germany in 2012. And it says, how would you describe the U.S. tax policy with regard to taxing income based on the graph above? So what about our policy in 2013 do you see here? Right here, what do we see here? Is it very little, highest taxes, somewhere in the middle, and we're similar to Germany? Which one do you think, guys? Go back up. Yes, ma'am. Where do we fit in here? The United States. Where does the US fit in here, guys? I need an answer from you, please. Right in the middle. Good. So there's our answer. We're right in the middle when it comes to developed nations. Okay. All right. So the debate over appropriate level taxation is a vigorous one in this country and around the world. People have widely different views on this subject. Okay. Let's go to question number 8. Really quickly, I'm going to go over the rubric real fast so that I'm not, oh, wrong one. Let me go to, where's my rubric? Hang on. Trying to find the rubric in here. I accidentally got rid of that tab. So for question number 8, it is asking certainty, right? When are income taxes due in the United States? And we all know basically income taxes are due April 15th. Okay. That's kind of generically when they are always due. I also added in here that because of when the 15th falls, that taxes this year, oh, so you're a tax day baby, that they're actually going to be due on the 18th this year. Okay. So I'm going to put that in our chat. All right. So let me go back over here. We just had to have a complete sentence. That's it for number 8. Number 9, we just have to have a complete sentence answering the question. For number 10, answering the question correctly. Then we go into 11, have to have a full paragraph. 12, we have to have a full paragraph. 13, we have to have a full paragraph. And 14, we have to have a full paragraph. Okay? So I just wanted to do that rubric really quickly. We answered question number 8. I put that in the chat. Let's move on to corporate and individual income taxes. So we're going to go to the next page. All right, so when we look at taxes that the government receives, right, different types of taxes that they receive, we can see that individual income taxes are 46% of the revenue they get from taxes. 34% comes from Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment taxes. 11% is corporate income taxes. 3% is excise taxes, think cigarettes, gas, anything along those lines. And then 6% comes from customs, that would be like tariffs, estate taxes, gift taxes, etc. Okay, So we know income taxes are money that we pay every month or every paycheck, right? And the amount that a person owes is determined on an annual basis. In theory, the federal government could wait till the end of the tax year to collect income taxes. In reality, though, that would be a problem for both the taxpayers and the government. For the government, they're like other employers, right? They have to pay for rent, supplies, services, and employee salaries. So getting a single annual payment from all of the nation's taxpayers, like once every year, would make meeting those expenses really difficult. Same thing goes for people. Many people might have trouble paying their taxes in one large lump sum. For these reasons, federal income tax is collected in a pay-as-you-earn system. That means that individuals usually pay most of their income tax throughout the calendar year as they earn income. And then they have until mid-April of the following year to pay any additional income taxes. Again, we talked about this, right? You want to make sure you are not paying too much out of every paycheck in taxes, because then you're overpaying what your tax rate is, giving the government, in essence, a tax or an interest-free loan. This a lesson learned from my dad. But you also don't want to pay too little each paycheck, because then at the end of the year, you might owe in taxes. So you're also walking that tightrope, right? So question number 9, it says, summarize the reasons that individuals essentially pay their taxes all throughout the year rather than all at once. Again, complete sentence to answer is all it's asking. So what I said is taxpayers have taxes withheld from their paychecks throughout the year rather than face a large tax burden at the end of the year. Individuals would have to calculate and remember either to save the amount in taxes throughout the year on their own or face having a large payment. So now imagine, not only would you possibly have this large payment at the end of the year, you have to calculate your taxes if we just paid it once and done, right? Most people are not good at saving or thinking that far ahead. That was my response to that. You may have something slightly different, and you are absolutely welcome to use mine or use your own or any combination of those. Okay. Question number 10, you have to have the correct answer. So we're moving on to the figure. Figure 6, you have to use this figure. This is what it is asking you about. So question number 10, it says, look at the tax schedule. Assume you are a single person to whom the schedule applies, who made $40,000 in taxable income a year. What would your income tax be? So we're asking for an amount. So remember, we learned about how there are tax brackets. And depending on where you fall into a range. So if you're 0 to 8,900 in 2013, you have no taxes. 89 to 36,250, you have a certain amount that you would pay. 36,250 to 87,850, right here is what we're looking at. If you make $40,000 a year, you have to read this part. $4,991.25. You pay that plus 25% of any income over the bottom amount, the $36,250. So 40,000 minus 36,250 equals something like 3750 is left. You have to multiply 3750 times 25%, and that comes out to $937.50. Then you have to add 4991.25 plus 937.50, and the total amount of income tax that it asked you about is 5928.75. Yes, I did the mathing for you. I am putting it in here. If you did not give me the correct answer, then you got credit for answering, just not for the full credit because you didn't give me a correct answer. Any questions on that? Yes, no. All right. Okay, so let's move on to Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment taxes in our course arc. All right, so in addition to having federal withholding taxes, it says like Fed WH in your paychecks. You also see something called FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act. And the money in FICA goes towards Social Security and Medicare. Social Security started in 1935 to ease the hardships of the Great Depression, and it continues today. It provides old age pensions and unemployment insurance to workers. It also provides benefits to surviving family members of wage earners and those whose disabilities keep them from working. There is a wage cap, so you don't pay in if you anything over $113,700. Medicare comes through the FICA tax and is a national health insurance program that helps pay for health care for people over the age of 65. It also covers people with certain disabilities. Both employees and self-employed people pay the Medicare tax on all their earnings, and there is no ceiling, so they can take out as much it doesn't matter how much you make, it's coming out. Okay? So if you look from 1966 to 2018, just like Social Security, because of the lessening amount of workers contributing to this and more people pulling out from this, you'll see that the receipts, that's the people paying in, it has gone up, but only to about $300 billion. But the expenditures, the amount of people that are drawing from these two, this is Medicare, but same thing's going with Social Security, that is up over $600 billion. So you'll notice more is being pulled out than is being put in. It's the same thing for both Social Security and Medicare. Okay. Unemployment taxes is basically an insurance policy for workers. So if workers are laid off from their jobs through no fault of their own, they can file for unemployment compensation claim and collect benefits for a fixed number of weeks. Okay. And this is paid by the employers. So let's go to our question. And starting with number 11, remember the rubric said we had to write a full paragraph, which means a minimum of 5 sentences. So exactly what I said. Social Security started out during the Great Depression, provided for old age pension, unemployment insurance. It also provides benefits to surviving family members of wage earners and people with disabilities to keep them from working. Medicare is a national health care for citizens 65 years and older. And unemployment taxes are to fund those workers who have lost their job through no fault of their own. Do I need to add anything to that, guys? I mean, if you're good with that. Okay, so I just put that in the chat. That's question number 11. Now we need to go on to other national taxes. So question number 12 is asking about estate and gift taxes. So let's talk about these. Excise taxes are those as a tax on general revenue on the sale or manufacture of a good. Gasoline, cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, telephone services, cable services, everything. If it's a good or a service, there's a general tax for those. Estate tax is a tax on the estate or total value of money and property of a person who has died. It is paid out of the person's estate before the heirs receive their share. It can cover money, cars, furniture, investments, jewelry, everything. So an estate tax is, I have died, I have an estate left. My estate pays a certain portion of it before the people who would get their actual amount. Okay. Gift taxes is a tax on the money or property that one living person gives to another. The goal of this was to keep people from avoiding estate taxes by giving away their money before they died. So we do set limits on gifts that are allowed, but you can get up to $14,000 a year tax-free in gifts. So tariffs are what are called protection taxes. They are on imported goods, like foreign goods brought into the country. It is no longer the most important source of federal revenue. In fact, it's a tiny share of federal revenue. The idea is to protect those goods and services made and produced here in the United States or any country, right? Protect those goods from that are made within our country from those coming in. We make those coming in, give them a tax, so it's a little bit higher. The idea is to have everybody buy the stuff made within our country. So let's go to the estate and gift taxes. So that's exactly what I just went over. And it asks for how are they related to one another. One is based on death. The other one is trying to get out of paying those death taxes. And so there's a way of getting taxes from the living. That's the two. This particular question, number 12, you also have to have it done in a complete paragraph. So, oops, it didn't do all of that. Okay. Let me finish putting that into the chat. There you go. So, estate tax, a tax on the stuff a person leaves when they die. Gift tax, a tax on stuff being given from one person to another while they are alive. The idea was to avoid them giving away everything and not having to pay an estate tax. Okay. Any questions on those? Yes, no. Okay. All right. Taxes that affect behavior. So the basic goal of taxation is to create revenue, right? To make money. However, governments sometimes use tax policy to discourage the public from buying harmful product. They also use taxes to encourage constructive behavior. So the use of taxation to discourage or encourage behavior is called tax incentive. One example we talked about earlier is the available tax deduction for charitable giving. That would be a positive tax incentive, right? Hey, if you donate stuff, we're going to give you a deduction for it. We're going to make it worth your while, right? That's like the carrot. Federal taxes on tobacco products and alcoholic beverages, even sugar taxes on things that have too much sugar, are examples of so-called sin taxes. The main purpose is to discourage people from buying and using these products. So if, hey, a tax deduction for donating is the carrot, taxes to keep you from doing things like drinking, smoking, eating too much sugar would be the stick, right? To discourage you. Incentives also come in the form of tax credits. I'm talking about energy conservation by offering a variety of credits to consumers and industries, like fuel-efficient cars or plug-in hybrid vehicles. You can claim credits for improvements that decrease the overall use of oil or other fossil fuels, like insulation, replacing windows, solar energy, etc. So, any questions on those? I know I'm going through it pretty quickly, but I want to make sure we get to the next part, which is mandatory and discretionary spending. All right, so federal spending. Out of all the money the federal government spends, this is kind of the breakdown. So we see veterans benefits and services, 3.5%. Those are retired military people. Defense, 19.2%. Medicare, 13.3%. Okay. Social Security, 21.9%. Income support, 15.3%. That's like, that could be unemployment. That could be anybody who gets money from the government for like individual help. Okay. Net interest on debt, 6.2%. Yes, we have to pay the interest on our debt. Medicaid and other health programs, 9.8%. And then other is 10.7%. So that's where all the money goes. But some of this money has to be paid first before the other things can be paid. There's mandatory spending. Those are the things that have to be paid. There's no deviation from it. And that is what the majority of the money from what the government makes has to go to. Okay. Most of mandatory spending is mandated or required by existing law to be spent on certain programs or to use for interest payments on the national debt. We see this in entitlement programs. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And then discretionary spending is what is left over. After mandatory spending has happened, you have what is left over, and that's where the government has a choice how much and where they're going to spend that money on. Okay. Government entitlements. So except for interest on the national debt, most of the mandatory spending items in the federal budget are for entitlement programs. Entitlements are social welfare programs that people are entitled to and benefit from if they meet certain eligibility requirements, such as being at a particular income level or age. Federal government guarantees assistance for all those who qualify. As the number of people who qualify rises, mandatory spending rises as well. So the more people that has to be paid, the more that is spent in mandatory spending. As a result, managing the cost of entitlement programs has become a major concern. Some, but not all, entitlements are means tested. In other words, people with higher incomes may receive lower benefits or no benefits at all. Medicaid, for example, is means tested. Social Security is not. A retirement person who has worked and paid Social Security taxes is entitled to certain benefits. Similarly, military veterans and retired federal employees are entitled to receive pensions from the government. Entitlements are largely unchanging part of government spending. Once Congress has set the requirements, it cannot control how many people become eligible for each kind of benefit. The only way they can change that is to change the eligibility requirements or reduce the amount of the benefit through a change in the law. They just cannot randomly go, nope, this year we're going to do that, or this year we're going to do this. They actually have to change the law. Here's the deal. Social Security makes up the largest portion of federal spending. 58 million Americans receive monthly benefits from Social Security Administration. Some are beneficiaries, some are disabled workers, but the majority of them are retired workers. They're the ones who already paid in, okay? Social Security system faces an uncertain future today. You have to understand how it is set up. American workers pay into the system through taxes. Those taxes go towards benefits for people who are no longer working. That is, the money you pay into Social Security today does not go into a fund for your future retirement. It goes towards supporting people who have already retired. So if you're paying Social Security now, you're putting money in, and those who are retired are pulling money out. So like workers are paying for those who are retired now, okay? For the system to function properly, there must be enough workers paying into to support all the retired workers receiving the benefits. Although the system has worked well, changes in U.S. population threaten to undermine it. Okay, all of this is because of the baby boom, right? The generation born following World War II. This large demographic group had been the backbone of the workforce, but they did not have as many children, or nowhere near the rate of their parents. And the oldest baby boomers are entering retirement. So millions more will soon follow. As this happened, the ratio of existing workers to retirees fall. People who are getting benefits, right? There's more of them going into retirement. They didn't have enough kids, so there's not as many workers paying in. Do you understand? Not as many people paying in as are taking out. Medicare serves about 47 million people, most of them over 65 years of age. It pays for hospital care and for the cost of physicians and medical service. It also pays healthcare bills for people who suffer from certain disabilities. Like Social Security, Medicare is funded by taxes withheld from people's paychecks. Monthly payments paid by people who make certain levels of taxable income and receive Medicare benefits also help pay for the program. So if we're looking at this, and the question is, from 2010 to 2080. So in 2010, we were spending about 3.5% of our GDP. By 2080, it's that they figure we're going to pay about 6.5% of our GDP for Medicare. So the question is, roughly how much larger as a share of the GDP will the Medicare costs be in 2080 compared to 2010? Triple, stay just short of double. Good, yes. We're not quite doubling it, but that's still a lot, right? Medicare costs have been growing rapidly, partly as a result of expensive technology, also because people are living longer, meaning we need medical, like healthcare, for longer periods, right? The basic problem facing Medicare is the same as the one facing Social Security, a failing ratio of workers to beneficiaries. Medicaid benefits low-income families, some people with disabilities, and elderly people in nursing homes. It is the largest source of funds for medical and health-related services for America's poorest people. The federal government shares the cost of Medicaid with state government. Other means-tested entitlements benefit people and families whose incomes fall below a certain level. This would be like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, National School Lunch Program. The federal government also pays retirement benefits and insurance for federal workers, as well as veterans pensions and unemployment insurance. So this right here, they're talking about free and reduced lunches, okay? Members of Congress have also pushed for additional government programs related to healthcare, Obamacare, right? That should ring a bell for you. And they're trying to like help keep the pace. So the cost of insurance and healthcare has gone up. It was $891 per person in 1960, $86.80 in 2011. We're up over $10,000 per person today. But how much is being paid for them versus the costs of them, they're not equal. Okay. Over the years, leaders have proposed a range of solutions: single payer tax systems, expansion of healthcare tax credits, trying to make healthcare more affordable. It never seems to matter. No matter what people propose, the other side is never happy with it. Okay. And then they're spending on discretionary. So all of this is mandatory. So what is left over goes to discretionary spending. And that's like divided up a variety of ways. Of that discretionary spending, about 19% of it goes to the Department of Defense. It pays the salary of the men and women in the military. It pays the department's civilian employees. It also, pays for battleships, tanks, airplanes, equipment, not just weapons and missiles. Okay. And then after you look at mandatory and defense spending, not a whole heck of a lot is left, right? That budget goes to millions of people who work for the civilian branches of the federal government, including park rangers, FBI agents, senators, members of Congress, secretaries, inspectors, anybody else who works for the government. And then, of course, we give a very tiny portion of that as federal aid to the states and local governments as well. Okay, so let's go to question number 13. We've got like 2 minutes left. So mandatory spending is money that is mandated. There's no changes. It's like the bills that you have to pay first. And then discretionary, how does mandatory spending affect discretionary spending? Well, discretionary is anything you have left over after mandatory spending. Not a whole lot. 36% is left over, and that goes towards discretionary. 19% of that goes to the defense, and then everything else. If mandatory spending goes up, there's less money for discretionary spending. Okay, that's the relation between the two. Does that make sense? So we could say, we could add to that one. Where's my little thingy? As mandatory spending rises, that leaves less for discretionary. That's generic, right? That's about as generic as I can get on that answer. All right, so the last question in our notebook, by means it's not the last question in our course arc, which we will do that one tomorrow when we talk about local and state taxes. But let's do the last question in the notebook. Consider all you have read about the mandatory spending programs in this section. Why do you think it is the overriding goal of the government in providing these programs? I'm leaving that up to you. Why do you think the government provides these programs, all those entitlement programs? What is their goal? You've got to give me a full paragraph to answer question 14. Okay? And that is it. We're done with the notebook. All you have to do now is answer question number 14 and submit that. And then tomorrow in class, we'll do the last page in the course arc over local and state taxes. And we're done for the day, guys. That is it. Remember, all Module 9 work is going to close on the 6th, which is Monday for quarter 3. And we are done for the day. I will see